Welcome back, everybody. This is the Fortune Roots podcast, and I'm your host, Matthew Couture. This is episode 15. And on this episode, I sit down with repeat guest Jason Holliday from the Harvest Holiday podcast. If you guys have not checked out the episode we did previously, I encourage you guys to go back and listen to it. I know we had a little bit of a hiccup last time we were on. We were trying to record, and then literally the day we were recording, Zoom had changed their rules. So it kind of got a little choppy in the middle because they only allowed me to record for 40 minutes instead of actually, it used to be one-on-one recording. You could record for several hours, which was perfect, and it was all free. But they said, okay, we want your money. So during the thing, it messed up and we kind of cut it short and got a little scrambled. But everyone that had reached out said, hey, that was a great episode and really learned a lot and felt like we were just getting to a sweet spot and didn't want it to end, which I agree with 100%. So I had Jason come back and sit down with me. And this time we stayed focused. We didn't get too distracted on going different routes. We talked about anything and everything elk, from e-scouting to fitness to what kind of gear you're going to need. What does it take mentally to stay out in the mountains, and med kits? What else? I mean, literally, guys, this is the longest one to date on the podcast. So if you guys can't sit down and listen in one sit, totally understand. Break this one up. I think it's going to be somewhere around like 2 hours ish or close to. So buckle up, enjoy this episode with Jason Holliday, and I will see you guys in the next one. Welcome back, everybody, to the Fortune Roots podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Couture, and with me today is Jason Holliday from the Harvest Holiday podcast. And you guys might recognize him from previous episode. If you haven't already watched that, stop this, go ahead and go back, watch the previous episode that he was on, and get to know Jason, who he is and what he's been doing with his podcast a little bit better. But if you guys do know, we kind of went on a tangent last time, didn't really stay too focused on the elk, but that's what we are here to do today. So we are going to talk anything and everything elk. Jason, how are you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing well, man. I've been looking forward to coming back. Yeah, like you said, we were just getting good. And I think what happened was, and I didn't realize it at the time either, it was literally like that day, Zoom decided to charge everybody $150 a year or $100 a year for, if you wanted to go for an hour, because, when you're just doing a one-on-one, it was free. You could talk for an hour and a half, whatever. It's kind of unlimited. And now they're like, we're going to start charging everybody. So I actually had to go in and bite the bullet myself. And for people that don't do podcasts or don't listen to podcasts, I'll admit that screwed me up. Like, because we actually stopped, got back on, started recording again, and then only had 40 minutes, and it just chewed the flow terribly. Lost my train of thought like 19 times, and it seemed like we were just getting our groove going, and there's like we still kind of ran out of time, and it just as we were kind of getting into the whole elk thing. So I know you wanted to get me back on, and so here I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that definitely was a good. I know you had the podcast later either that day or the next day. You're like, good trial run. Glad it happened with yours and not mine.
Yeah,
like,
I did. I actually did have a podcast the next day, and I did a little research, and I was like, I'm because there's anybody that's listened to my show knows that I can do solo shows like one take. I can talk for an hour by myself.
Yep.
Especially in their early morning shows, and I've got 4 cups of coffee in me. I can I can kind of go, which is good because I'm running on caffeine all day today, and so you're lucky. I'm 5 o'clock and I'm still wound for sound. So
there we go.
Let's do it.
Sweet. All right. So guess we'll start off, somebody who is just getting into elk hunting. What are the things that they should know or things that they should get into at the very beginning? Because you can jump right in and get kind of overwhelmed with all the gear, the e-scouting and all this. And if you're somebody that's not out west and you're in the east, travel and cost, where's kind of somewhere that you started yourself and you'd recommend for other people?
Oh man, where I started was all the wrong, I don't want to say the wrong things, but looking back on it, I got really focused on gear. particularly Sitka gear, which, looking in the garage, there's like 3 totes full of it now. But, getting started when I first got into elk hunting, I'm like, I want to be an elk hunter, was the fall of 2016. Okay. And so it took me 3 years to get to a place financially where I felt like I could take this trip, meaning I needed to get out of some credit card debt, needed to kind of, I had to buy some gear, right? I had nothing. I'm just a whitetail guy from Ohio. So all I had was like knee-high rubber boots and some old, mossy oak camo, which is fine, but it wasn't conducive to what the guys out west were wearing. This is old cotton heavy clothes, nothing built for like Western hunting, which you got to realize in Colorado, and I'll stay just with Colorado because that's where I hunt. I think that's where a lot of guys head because it's like the first big state with elk in it. It's still summer, September 1st to September 30th. I mean, it's summer all the way to the 21st, and it does feel like that. So I didn't have the kind of clothing for those types of 75 and even 85-degree days in mid-September, and then the 40-degree nights or whatever. So I did have to kind of start clean slate. And of course, to be perfectly honest, I, saw the romanticism of like all the high end stuff, all, like you said, the Sitka gear for one thing. I think that was kind of one of my big, I want to call it a mistake because I ended up buying, I worked hard for some of that stuff. I worked a lot of overtime to buy certain pieces of kit, this jacket that I thought I needed, those pants I thought I needed, all these base layers and this big puffy jacket and all this stuff. And I racked up, a couple $1,000 on that bill, just the clothing bill. It was over $2,000, which is sick. But, then I had to buy boots, which I bought the wrong pair of boots right off the get go. I spent $350 on a pair of boots and realized they weren't quite the style of boot that I needed for the terrain I was going to be in. I didn't understand the way it's a good boot, but it was more of a cross trainer hiker, not a real stiff, rigid boot. So, and they wouldn't take the boot back. And I hadn't even worn them. They wouldn't take it back. So I had to drop another $400 on another boot that I still have now. And, bought a shelter that was not, as cool as it was. I bought the wrong shelter for the type of hunting I was doing for the time of year I was doing it, if that makes sense. I bought a floorless shelter and I bought a stove, a collapsible box stove. For those that have never really seen one, they make these to where it basically fits inside of a little briefcase. It all collapses down, titanium stove, rolls up into this really neat. I mean, it's a great concept. And I thought I needed to have one of those, because I watched all these Donnie Vincent videos and with these guys were coming back to camp at night and they were getting in their floorless shelter and they were getting the stove going. And it was all these cool things. I'm like, yeah, man, I got to have a stove. And then you realize, in the few years I've been doing this, like I've never really needed a stove. It has been nice that first year that I did take it out there. It did provide some shelter or some comfort, especially that very, very first night in the backcountry. That stove, I will admit, it was like having your best friend show up when you're hunting by yourself. Because my first hunt was kind of a solo hunt. But as the years have gone by, I've realized the things that I don't particularly need. And then maybe you can kind of steer me in the right direction of specific things. Cause we could deep dive, man. We could deep dive down some rabbit holes of what not to do. Like I said, I bought all great gear. Don't get me wrong. If you got the money, go for it. In a nutshell, and like I said, we can go down different routes here, but in a nutshell, buy the best gear you can afford. Okay. But understand that you got to have a tag. And right now, to hunt Colorado archery over the counter, when you add up your different fees, your actual elk tag, which is like $670, and then all the other nickel dime fees, you're going to spend, let's call it $800 to hunt elk in Colorado. So let's get that one out of the way first, right? And then it's food, and then it's fuel, and then it's something to sleep in, something to carry all your gear in on. You've got your bow already, kind of a thing. So if, like I said, I'll let you kind of drive the bus on this one, but in a nutshell, the big takeaway, like I said, we'll talk about this a little bit more. The big takeaway, learned a lot on how much, if I could go back in time, I could save myself
So much money.
so much money, dude. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because some of that stuff, I love the Sitka gear. Some of it I haven't worn since 2019, honestly. And
Yep.
and you've had John Barklow on the podcast, and
Yep.
when I first met him was after that first hunt, shortly after that first hunt.
Okay.
And I told him my gear list and everything. He's like, yeah, he didn't need this. He didn't need that. You should have bought this. And you really honestly didn't even need to bring that, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that education, but that wasn't promoted on IG, not because of John, but I'm just saying, people some guys are sponsored. So they're pumping a product out.
Right.
They're showing the romanticism. You're watching these videos and you see the guy sipping a coffee, on top of an 11,000 foot peak in the morning. You didn't see the 3,000 feet he had to gain to get from camp and how much it sucked to get there. And all these, there's a lot that goes into it. So I'll shut up and let you.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. Got a lot of knowledge and experience now as we've gone through the years, and me going back and listening to the podcast and hearing that first one and now getting in the next year and the year after. And it definitely shows, but I guess let's start off with okay, I'm somebody that's never hunted elk before and I want to go either Colorado or any other state. What is the first thing? Because it can get a little confusing. You have your over the counter, then you have stuff that you can put in for drawing certain hunting units. Kind of explain what that is, I guess, more so for Colorado specifically, because that.
Sure.
Go down that.
So the first thing that I would do, if you're like, you're committed to elk hunting and you want to become an elk hunter, there's a barrier of entry there. There's things that I feel you have to invest your money on. There's two things. There's investing and then there's spending. Okay. Investings are things that bring value. Spending is just willy-nilly, buying the Sitka catalog. Okay. So with that said, I would get a membership to GoHunt.com and GoHunt.com. And again, I'm not sponsored by GoHunt. This is something I found out kind of the hard way. I bought an Onyx membership. The first thing I did, which Onyx Maps is a digital mapping service. It puts like a GPS basically in the palm of your hand. You can throw waypoints down. You can, turn a tracking thing on and have it track all of your steps and so on and so forth. And I had that and thought that was good. I used Google Earth, but there was something that wasn't putting everything together. I didn't understand like draw odds, like you were just talking about, and statistics for like, well, what's in this unit and what's in that unit. There's, you look at a map of Colorado and all of their game management units, which I guess I should back up a little bit, trying to kind of explain that part. So Colorado and a lot of the other states, we'll stay specific with Colorado. Colorado is broken up into GMUs or game management units. So each unit, they're all different sizes or whatever, and they're all numbered accordingly from 1 to 600 and whatever. Some of them are broken up into what you were referring to as an over-the-counter unit or an OTC unit, which basically means you can just buy a tag over the counter at a Walmart or at a gas station, okay, and hunt. I think there's 150 units in Colorado that are over the counter, which means you can buy a tag. It's all public land. Some of these units are several 100,000 acres of public land that you can just park your truck on at a trailhead or off the side of a forest road and just go. In fact, when I first started even taking interest, it was probably 2008 or 9. My friend Todd Johnson, which is another good podcast of mine to check out. I can't remember the name or the number, but I did an interview with my friend Todd Johnson on the Harvest Holiday podcast. And when he first went, he was first telling me about this. It was like, I didn't understand that you could just go out there and do this on your own. Right. So there's all this public land available, but kind of getting back on track a little bit. GoHunt.com is a great resource. Tons of articles that explain draw odds, statistics, if you want to put, how the point system works. And we don't have to deep dive into the point system, but you can, in a very easy to understand way, you can buy preference points that help you get into these limited units. Okay. Obviously the most popular ones require the most points, but there's some great units out there that after 3 or 4 years, you can have a few points and put in a drawing with those points for some of those choice units. And while you're doing that, you can still keep hunting over the counter, which is kind of what I did this year. And we don't have to dive too deep in it, but you do in Colorado have the option of buying a preference point as your first choice, because you get 4 choices for elk. And I put in for a tag on my second choice. So I automatically got my preference point. But I didn't draw on the first try, but there is a secondary draw, which again, we'll try not to go too deep down. We could do a whole podcast on draw odds and statistics, but I think the first thing that people need to do, honestly, Matthew, is, get a subscription to GoHunt. It's helped me out a ton. I haven't had to ask a lot of if you can read or watch a video, and these guys are all hunters, and yeah, I've learned a lot about draw odds and statistics, and they have links to Colorado Parks and Wildlife, big game, rules and regs. So you can get in there, definitely get into that. If you're thinking of hunting Colorado, go to, I think it's cpw.state.co or something like that. And you can download a free copy of their rules and regs, and that'll teach you some things too, because you're ultimately going to be in their state and you want to know the rules and regs, and that'll help kind of help you find like what unit that you might want to hunt. So if that's probably the first thing I would start with. There's a GoHunt membership, and then I used Onyx Maps. It's gotten better and better every year. There's other services out there, and that's fine, but an Onyx Map membership, which also has links to different articles and things like that. But there's the ease
through Onyx, it does.
Yeah, I think when you're when you're like an elite member, I think they have different links to articles and things like that too.
Okay.
And then covers all 50 states, but you can buy a single state membership. So if you're like, look, I'm not hunting anywhere but Colorado, you can buy, I think for maybe, 35 or 40 bucks a year, you can just buy a single state, or the elite membership is like $100 a year, which is great. Obviously I hunt a couple different states, so it comes in pretty clutch. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing to start out with. And I think the second thing would be to, start utilizing those tools like Google Earth is a great resource, because you're going to be like, okay, we're going to Colorado. Where do we go? And then you start looking at GoHunt. And one of the nice things about GoHunt is you can see if you can pick your state. Let's say we're picking Colorado. You can pick your species. So we're going to pick elk. And then you can go in there and say, with all these different filters, you can say, well, I just want to see the over-the-counter areas. So now you can just click all over the counter for art, and then you can click archery,
and just narrow it
down. And now it's like, oh, okay, now I see there's this unit. Okay, this unit I was looking at is it's not an over the counter, it's a draw unit. It's my first year, so we're just going to go over the counter, and then you can click on that one particular unit. Let's just call it unit 10. Okay. You can click on unit 10, open that up, and they give you a pretty good description of the terrain, habitat, type of, the draw odds over the years, weather patterns over the years, harvest statistics over the years, from archery, muzzleloader, first, second, third, fourth rifle. So you can really break down a unit. Like say you pick this unit and you say, well, what's the harvest statistics? I said it right on the first try, the first time. And you can say, wow, this is the harvest rate last year was 20%, which is freaking incredible. It's usually the statewide is usually around, for archery, it's like 10%. And that's kind of generous. So 90% of the people are going home eating tag soup, right? So you can, but it'll give you an idea on GoHunt for the unit that you chose, kind of give you a rough idea, like, okay, last year, it'll even show you how many hunters in archery season hunted it, resident, non-resident, how many hunters hunted it. And, if you're a rifle guy or a muzzleloader guy, it'll show you how many tags were given out, how many cows were killed, how many bulls were killed, bull to cow ratio. And like I said, it'll give you kind of a little snippet, some clues, like, it'll say something like some hunters prefer to park, on the north end of the unit where it's more elky, where the south end of the unit might be better for mule deer hunters. And you're like, oh, okay. So it's a great resource. And I think that's where everybody should kind of start out, because gosh, you can get, like, I was overwhelmed instantly because nobody else was going to go with me. So I had to be my own, like, I couldn't look over to my right or my left and be like, hey, how do I, it's like, I just had to
What are
figure
we
it out,
doing?
man.
Right.
Yeah. I just had to figure out, but what that really helped kind of break it in there. And then I started like, it started really coming clear. So I know that's a long-winded answer. But seriously, break away from gear and all that cool stuff. And you got to just like pick a unit, and start, scouting the hell out of that unit.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Because that's definitely like when I first heard about elk hunting and how to get into that, that was like, okay, well then how do you get into it? And then hearing these preference points and then draw tags and over the counter and take all this. And then I'm like, okay, well, once you get there, if you do over the counter on public land, then what? Like, how do you know which areas the elk will be in versus the other? So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
definitely have to I've been hearing GoHunt, and actually through the Total Archery Challenge, one of their things that they partnered with GoHunt and the map system. So if
Dude.
you
Yeah.
went to Total Archery Challenge, I've got it for free for the next year. So I've been
Oh,
kind of looking
sweet.
at that. Yeah, just for their maps portion. All
And
the other stuff you still got to pay for if you want, but trying to, because I got Onyx too. So
yeah.
trying to compare the two, I definitely interested to see the difference and where they're at. I know they've been trying to grow it more and more, but
Yeah. And I think 100, don't quote me on this, but I think it's either 100 or 150 a year is a Go Hunt membership. And
mhm.
the mapping service comes with that.
Yep.
So if like you can just buy the map, but if you're already an insider and you already get it, you can download the app. And the Go Hunt Maps app, I've been tinkering with it. I'm pretty much all, Onyx. But man, does the Go Hunt have some pretty rad features. Like for instance, like, well, how do I find elk? They have overlays where you can see elk travel corridors in the wintertime, and it'll be shaded purple. So you click on that and then bloop, then you'll see like travel corridors
Ah.
where elk move, and you'll be like, damn. Where you say, well, we want to hunt, 8,000 to 10,000 feet. So show me all the areas that
Mhm.
are 8 to 10,000 feet. So you'll click on 8 to 10,000 and it'll highlight everything in that unit that's above in between 8 to 10,000 feet and like lime green. So you're like, oh, okay. So this particular section of the range up here is 8 to 10,000 feet. And then you can throw down like, okay, I just want to see what's at 11,000 only. And then it's bright red. And so it starts to give you like those visual aids. And then you throw in like
Mhm.
the travel corridors, right? And then the wintering ranges or the spring ranges or whatever. There's all these different overlays. So you can really start to see like, dude, it's nuts. It's
Yeah.
something, and it's super user friendly. Like I said, if you're just elk specific, you can click on the state of Colorado and the Go Hunt Maps thing, and you can just start throwing in, like you said, like now what? How do you get there? There's hiking trails, like actual
Mhm.
designated hiking trails that are provided by the state of Colorado. Actually, Trail 1492 or whatever, and it'll show the distance of that trail. You can add an overlay for water, whether it be lakes, rivers, seeps, like little seeps that come out of the mountain. It'll show it in like little dots, so you have an
Mhm.
idea where water might be. Trailheads, as actual designated trailheads, it'll pop up a th on some of these spots that are actual designated trailheads. And yeah, that tool, like I said, not sponsored. Okay, I just a dude that like,
Right.
because I'm not really a tech guy, but like that stuff is like it's super user friendly. And it's really, in fact, like I said, I've just started kind of really using Go Hunt a little bit more because I've been
Mhm.
exploring some different units because I may not be hunting the unit that I want this year. So I've been like looking at options and I'm like power scouting. I'm like, okay, what's
Yep.
what's the elevation in this unit? What's the hunting pressure like? And I'm trying to find where guys might not be going because maybe it's a little too high in elevation or too far back or what's back there. And like I said, having these different overlays, burn areas are another area.
Mhm.
Forest fires. So you get a forest fire and let's say 2018. Well, right now, a couple years later, that area is going to be green and lush. And
Yep.
that's where the elk are going to be. But just looking at Google Earth, you can't, I mean, you can kind of see it because you can see from Google Earth, like the
Right.
trees look like somebody just dropped a pile of matchsticks. But you can
Right.
go into, Go Hunt and you can, you know, put the overlay for forest
Forest
fires
fires. Yep.
by year. So if you click on 2016 and there's nothing, well, there wasn't a forest fire there in 2016. But if you click on
Okay.
2017, boof, there's this big yellow area. It's like, oh, there was a forest fire in 2016. Now you can think, okay, well, that's probably grown up again. It's
Yep.
green, it's lush. That might be a spot we should check and throw a pin on, and hunt the edges of these burns where it transitions back into the timber. That might be where elk are coming out to feed. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's those little tiny, I know I sound like a spokesman for GoHunt, but I'm just saying,
I was gonna say, if it
you
works, it
asked,
works. Like,
yeah, you asked me the question. I
yeah.
mean, but that's how I'm learning on my own, because I'm a dude from Ohio,
And say
you
this makes
know?
it so much better for guys like us that are out east that can't necessarily have the funds to be able to go out there boots on the ground all the time. Like,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
nowadays, gas ain't cheap and
Whew.
getting there and flights. And
Yeah.
this makes it so much better, like to at least have a really good educated guess right off the bat and
Yep.
being able to do it straight from your house.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you nailed it, man. With gas prices at $5 a gallon and airline flights are nuts.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, you might have no choice. That might be the difference between going or not going. And so being on top, and a lot of guys listening right now, myself included, we spend too much time, scrolling on the phone, right?
Yep.
Playing on Instagram and stuff like that. When you can be e-scouting, you can get on the GoHunt and you can, learn these different layering features. Like I said, they do a great job with their tutorials on how to even use their app, which I think is great for guys like you that are just like,
Yep.
like we said, brand new.
Yep. Yep.
And even me too. Like dude, I haven't even killed an elk yet, so I don't even know why you have me on here. But I've I've got enough experience to know what not to do. And it is kind of incredible to look back at. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I've been open to learning. You know what I'm saying? The last few years. So I like to share just what I've learned. I try not to go beyond what I've learned and what I know. I try to speak on the things that I know I can to help a guy like you. Like,
Yeah.
Hey man, like you said, I could buy this $250 Sitka coat, man, because that thing looks bomb. I'm like, dude, but you don't even know how to e-scout yet. You don't even have a subscription to a thing that's going to bring you value, and we haven't even gotten into actual e-scouting courses or anything yet. I mean, there's those as well.
Yeah, so I guess that kind of good transition is what are some good e-scouting courses, and like where can people find them? Are they through like GoHunt, Onyx, or are these just like actual courses that people have themselves?
Oh, I will tell you, and I am kind of sponsored a little bit. Mark Livesey, who goes off the handle of I think it's Treeline _ Pursuits, is his I think is his IG handle, and the Treeline Academy is his e-scouting course. And I did another one prior to that, and it was a good course. It was a good elk hunting calling course that talked about how to e-scout. There was a module in there for e-scouting. This is like a college online course for I'm telling you, and it was like $100, and I bought it before I even knew Mark. Like, I heard him on a different podcast. I'm like, I'm buying this right now. Sight unseen. When I heard this guy on a show, I'm like, I'm buying his course right now, because this guy is nerding out on, dude. So like I said, we won't go too deep dive, but this guy, like I said, his modules are somewhere north of an hour long sometimes. And it does feel like you're in a college course, but the value that I got just from the module on Google Earth Pro, game changer.
Yeah, so I heard you talk about that. I'm like, it sounded like definitely something to check out.
Like I talk to him all the time, and I'm like, that was worth the price of admission right there. The little nuggets that he gave me just from how to use Google Earth in conjunction with, and that's the great thing about Mark's e-scouting course. Like I said, it's Treeline Academy. Use code HARVEST, save you 20%. All right.
There we go.
Use code HARVEST, save you 20%. And this is a really in-depth course. You have the membership for 1 year, so you can break it down. In fact, I will plug this for Mark. He did such a good job. I think he put the first 3 or 4 modules for free. So you can kind of check that course out for free, see what Mark's all about, see how in depth he gets. Cause like I said, he's a guy that's super passionate about elk and the e-scouting. He's like freaking Yoda. Okay. And like I said, and I thought that before I actually met him. I actually got him on my podcast. So people are more than welcome to check out some of the stuff I've done with Mark Livesey as well. But again, that was like next level. And I hadn't gotten that for I think it was my second or third year doing this. So I'd already kind of been like e-scouting on my own. I felt kind of comfortable with Google Earth, but like Mark takes it to a stupid level, but it's very, very helpful. And it is a serious course. I can't say it enough. Like you literally sit there and go, oh my God, this dude's like mega deep diving. But you get what you pay for.
Yep.
This isn't some willy-nilly course you're just going to knock out in a weekend. I mean, you're going to want to carve time out for this, but like you said, this is something that a guy like you can do, get a ton of value. You've got the resource you can, and Mark's an easy guy to get a hold of on IG. If you subscribe to the Treeline Academy, he's on there all the time answering questions. He genuinely loves to help guys like you and me when it comes to e-scouting and things like that. He really has a passion for it. He's actually working on some stuff for bear hunting, for spring bear hunting. He's going to do a whole e-scouting course for bears. But the elk scouting course, again, Google Earth, Onyx Maps, Gaia GPS. He uses all these things. GoHunt uses all these things in conjunction together. The dude's like in his house, he's got like 6 monitors, and that's how he e-scouts. I'm not joking.
That's pretty sweet.
It's like a freaking command center. It's nuts. But that's, like I said, I think if I was to go back now, like I'd drop $100 on that, man. Like you can buy a cool pair of Sitka pants, or you can spend a couple $100 and get you, a GoHunt membership and Mark's course for the price of a pair of Sitka mountain pants. And those mountain pants aren't going to guarantee you an elk, dude. They're not going to help you.
Knowledge is power. I feel like yes, you can eventually get to that gear, but having the knowledge of what you're doing out there is, I feel, far superior over just having the right gear and like looking good and being somewhat comfortable. But if you don't know how to scout and how to find the elk, you can be dressed however the hell you want to be dressed and find nothing.
Exactly. I have this saying all the time, and I might have said it on the last podcast, but like I coined this phrase, like the mountain doesn't care if you're wearing $2,000 with a Sitka or $20 with a Walmart camo. It'll happily beat your ass either way. You go out there dressed like, the Sitka catalog, and I'm not making fun of Sitka. Obviously I wear the stuff all the time and promote it. But my point is, you can have the best of everything and just get pummeled by the mountain, or get out there and do like I did in 2020 and be all geeked. And like, I didn't have the e-scouting knowledge. I had 1 or 2 places to go, and I hit those places and then was overwhelmed by the size of this area. And then just went, cause I didn't have a hunt plan. Mark shows you how to do a hunt plan on his Treeline Academy. He shows you how to keep yourself busy morning, noon, and night all day. And when you have a structured plan to go out there, and you're like, okay, because spot A might be filled with hunters, and so in spot B might have caught fire a couple of months ago and is just not an option right now. So you need to have plan, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H, I, J, K, L, M. Right. Seriously, like all jokes aside, and I didn't think about that. I had like a couple of plans, but when those fizzled out by day 2, I was basically just walking around with a bow on my back. So, and like I said, man, part of why I do the podcast is because it's like, one of these years I'm going to talk about success, but right now we're going to talk about the things that the challenges, again, because
like you said, it was what, 10% success rate out in Colorado. Like, it's not the only story. And I'm sure there's plenty of other guys that are out there learning each time too.
Sure.
So.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. And another thing for the e-scouting that I found, I don't know if you've had the chance to check it out. Have you looked at it's been on almost every podcast and every influencer in the hunting world right now. It feels like the outdoor class that they just dropped. Yep. I was going to say, I picked that up and started watching Remy Warren's mule deer stuff, looking at that. But then I saw they had Randy Newberg on the rifle elk hunting. And I know they keep saying they're going to add more stuff, like, because Barklow in the last podcast we did, he was talking about it and like, I'm going to be on there. And then I looked, I'm like, wait, he's not on there yet. But apparently over the next year or whatever, they're going to keep dropping more and more content. I don't know if you had a chance to check that out or not.
I haven't. I know about it. In fact, it's kind of a spin-off of a thing called Masterclass. I don't know if you ever heard it or not. I've seen it on, advertised on Instagram. So what Masterclass is, basically you pay a subscription fee, and you can pick and choose from different, like, say you want to learn how to cook with Chef Gordon Ramsay. So Gordon Ramsay actually has a master class where he teaches you how to cook all these different dishes. If you want to sing like, Christina Aguilera, she's got one. You want to play basketball, like, let's see who was like Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry has a Steph Curry masterclass. You know what I mean? And there's all these different people. So they kind of built it off of that, which I think is great. I keep saying, I'm going to download the masterclass just so I can, like, instead of just watching some like YouTube videos of Gordon Ramsay, it's like an 18 module, 7-hour long, very detailed, very personable like course. And that's what the course that you're talking about. It's called what? Outdoor class. Very same
outdoor class. Yeah.
Very same thing there. And I think for somebody that's new, I think there's probably some value there to that too. But at some point in time, and this is just my opinion, you got to just get out there.
Yep.
You got to get out there. I think there's a lot of free content out there, and not to take away from anything what these guys are doing. But I think you got to pick and choose your battles when it comes to that. I think between podcasts alone, I think you can get a lot of value from specific individuals. Remy Warren's done, he's got his own podcast.
Yep.
He's done hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. So you can get a lot of value if you want to just soak up Remy Warren knowledge between YouTube, IG, and his podcasts. You might not need to pay for that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. If that's again, we go back to, buy the best that you can afford, and have that budget. But I'm very curious to see how that pans out for sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because when I got on there, I saw the rifle elk, and there's some cool stuff on there, but I'm definitely excited to see how they progress it throughout the year and add more content to it. Cause it is the same thing as far as like, they've got their modules, and even Remy's like given some knowledge of like, well, this is how, depending on what time of year and what part of the states that you're hunting, this is the behavior of the mule deer and where they're going to be, and just all this crazy stuff. That's like, oh yeah, that's just somebody who's been in the woods for 300 plus days a year. And that's just knowledge you can't get unless you are doing that,
Yeah. And if that's, like I said, Remy goes into a lot of depth, and he's got a lot of knowledge from, like you said, decades of hunting. And you can pick up a lot of that from, podcasts, his hunting videos and things like that. However, if you're just like, look, I'm going to get a lot of value out of buying this Remy Warren course or whatever, I'm pretty confident that there's probably even more detail to it, where it's not just a 30-minute podcast or a 25-minute YouTube video. So again, not to disparage anybody from it. But getting back to your original question, getting into elk hunting can be, but doesn't have to be so damn expensive. But there are some value. So like I said, I'm going to stick to my guns and say something like it, GoHunt, GoHunt subscription, and an Onyx map subscription. And then, like I said, the tree line, if you're just new to the e-scouting thing too, because you're going to be, if you're just a whitetail guy, you're not e-scouting for whitetails. You're just going to grandpa's farm. You know what I mean? That's all you're doing. You've never e-scouted a damn thing, so your e-scouting is going to be a new thing for you. So before you start buying the Kafaru packs and stuff like that, drop a dime on Mark Livesay's, tree line course. And I think those three things there, man, I think those can really set you up. Because if you decide January 1, all right, man, 2023 is the year I'm going. Like, and now you're like stoked about it. Like, what you've got 9 months, like $300, right? $300 is the price of some of the sweatshirts. That's from some of these companies. I won't keep picking on Sitka, but there's other company. You could drop $300 on a bag without a frame at some of these, backpack companies. Like I said, knowledge is, you said it best, knowledge is power. You know what I mean? So I think that was one of my biggest things that I learned, that I didn't put enough into education. I just put my mind focused on gear and the romanticism of using said gear when I was out there. And I quickly realized, dude, the first year I went out there, get this, I'll throw myself under a bus. This is one of my favorites. I ran out of money and didn't buy a communication device.
Oh man.
I spent money on everything else, but I didn't. I'm like, you know what? I'm going with a buddy. I don't need a Garmin InReach. We're going to be together. And my friend, I feel bad. I don't want to make it sound like I'm picking on him, but he ended up getting really, really sick and ended up leaving the hunt. Okay. And so I was left by myself in an area with no cell service whatsoever, and so
Yep.
I ended up hunting for a couple of days in this one spot, had this one little spot over where I parked my truck where I could kind of like get service. And then uh, I ended up leaving that spot after a couple of days and then going into town and getting a hotel. And the only place I had service in the hotel was the lobby. So I basically text my wife a screenshot of the area that I was hunting with a pin. I was like, this is kind of the general area. If you don't hear from me by Thursday, call search and rescue. Like
Yep.
seriously, like if you
Yeah.
don't hear from me by the end of the day Thursday, I'm coming out Wednesday. If you don't hear from me by the end of the day Thursday, what a dick move is that?
Like, okay,
You know what I mean?
bye.
Like, and it messed with
Yeah.
me, man. And it ended up causing me to come out early because
Yep.
I'm out there. I did get into a little, not an accident, but like kind of slid and fell a little bit. I didn't really get hurt, but it was like a
Spooked you.
warning. It
Yeah.
was a warning shot. Like, hey, dude, if something happens out here, nobody knows you're here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that was a really dumb move. And I bought a puffy coat that I've never worn. I wore it snowmobiling one time. And it's like that would have been the cost of my GPS unit. And then I ended up
Mm.
buying that the following year, learned how to use it. Um, so yeah, like just little, yeah, I just got caught up in the gear and didn't like prioritize. So
Yep.
prioritize, kids.
There we go. Yes.
Prioritize.
Absolutely. So I guess kind of going forward, we've done how to go about getting a tag, e-scouting.
Mhm.
I guess the next step of the process of if you're somebody that's in the east and wants to go out west, then you're e-scouting. Next, what would be like your next step as far as process of getting ready to go out there? Is it go out there? Is there anything else that we're missing beforehand?
Well, yeah, big time. Fitness. Fitness is a big deal out there. And, you don't have to be a Cameron Haynes and run a marathon a day. You don't, but but it is like I said, if you decide January 1, and if you're a little overweight or you just think you're in shape, you're not. Um, I'm 45 years old. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I continually go out there and just get throttled on like day one.
Mhm.
Um, and that was one of the other things I've learned, like, okay, this is what I need to work on. I knew when I went out there, I was doing a lot of cardio. I was, hitting the gym. I was kind of working out. I used to race four-wheelers. I did that for over a decade. So I had like some, I was able to work out. I was doing well. But like the mountains is just totally different. High elevation, totally different.
Yep.
Breathing at 10,000 feet is totally different than at the 1,000 feet we're at right now or whatever. And it's an eye opener. Hiking with a pack on your back. That was one of the other things. One of the first times I really hiked with a pack on my back was when I went to Colorado for a scouting trip prior to my very first season. We loaded the pack down with all this stuff and I put the pack on and went, uh-oh. It was just like it hurt muscles that I didn't even
Yep.
know I had. So I think proper training, throwing some weight in a backpack, even if it's 20 pounds, is an incredible way to kind of get into shape. Find a
Mhm.
picnic table or a park bench, or if you're at the gym, step ups where you step up and step down, step up and step down, just mimic the climbing. Anything you can do, a stair climber. I hate that stair climber more than anything at the gym, but it's what is
Yep.
working muscles. And I've noticed the benefits. I've noticed the gains, if you will,
Yep.
that I've had over the last year or so, because even when I went out last year, I thought I was in great shape. Excuse me. We hunted this or scouted this area that was probably one of the steepest places I've ever been in my life. And I'm like, dude, because we were doing nothing but stepping over deadfall. It was an old burn area. So there's trees bigger than telephone poles just laying all over. You can't go 10 feet without stepping up and over, up and over, up. And you're, going up on some of these angles were like 40 and 50-degree slopes. It was just ridiculous. I've never side hilled like that. And my legs just got smoked. And so my nephew put me on kind of a regimen, told me what to
Mhm.
work out with. And one of the things he just said was take a couple dumbbells, maybe start out with light, start out with 15s or 20s in each hand, and then just step up right foot, step down right foot, then left foot, right foot, and then just
Yep.
do that and work your way up until you're, doing 30 pounds in each hand, 40 pounds in each hands. And I remember when I first started, like that was really hard. That was hard to do. But I ended up working my way up. Same with the stair climber. Like I couldn't go like I could go about 40 floors when I first started doing the stair climber last July, and was done, like done, like get me off this thing, I'm
Mhm.
done. And now just my warm-ups are around 150 floors. Okay. And then
Jeez,
same
yeah.
same with leg extensions. I remember when we got back from that trip, I remember it like it was yesterday, the scouting trip in July. Started doing like leg curls and leg extensions. Dude, I couldn't do over 60 pounds with the leg curls. Now I'm about 110. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So noticeable squats, lunges, those like key, like you got to have strong legs, man. You get muscles and arms and shoulders and stuff. That's great for impressing the girls or whatever, you
Yeah,
know.
right.
But yes, you know, a strong back, all jokes aside, a strong back, because you're going to carry a pack all day long.
Yeah.
You're going to carry a pack all day long. Your legs, you're going to be on your feet all day, and you're going to be climbing. And not to say that every spot in Colorado is super steep, but I mean, like I said, we're coming back from flat Ohio and mostly flat Michigan. And there's just places out there that some guys have never, you know, they've never been in that type of terrain. And like I said, it'll
Mhm.
work muscles in your shins. You know, if you've never side hilled on a mountainside to go across, you
Yep.
know, a mountain to get to a bedded bowl or whatever. You've never had your ankle bend in a certain way before because you're
Yep.
just used to walking on a flat sidewalk. Like I said, those are all things that like stuck in my head more than really any other experience, is like how not in shape I really was, you know. And
Mhm.
but I took that seriously, and I came back that September, um, having the confidence knowing that I put in even more work from July to September, and it did pay off. And I've just increased that,
Yep.
you know, over time, to where when I go to the gym, I'm not working out, I'm training for something. You know, I'm really focused on what I need to do to be good out in the mountains. So yeah, no, you don't have to run marathons a day, but damn it, you should be working out every day anyhow, because it's just a good idea.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing too. Like when I went to Total Archery Challenge, like granted, Crystal Mountain out in Michigan, nothing like Colorado, but it is still some elevation gain. You have some mountain and getting the side hilling, like you were saying. And I was curious because like the first course I did on Friday was the Black Rifle course. Real like the whole thing was basically flat. But the next day I did the Sika course, and that was going up and down and going across the mountain. And it was kind of like the first time I've ever done something like that. And yeah, it was definitely different, like you said, like feeling those muscles in your ankles and just the pressure in your feet. And like by the end of the day, I was like, oh man, just this toast to my feet just now, like thinking ahead, like that's definitely something to kind of get me geared up. I was like, okay, definitely want to prepare. Like this is, I know, just a small little taste, almost nothing
Mm-hmm.
compared to what's going to be out there.
No, yeah, and that's it. And like I said, I've, you know, been doing this a couple years now, so not an expert, but I definitely know one thing for sure, like going out there, that the acclimation process of just
Yep.
acclimating, and everybody acclimates different. Not to brag or boast or anything like that, but I acclimate pretty fast. But the first day is usually, you know, I'm a little winded, get dizzy quick. Hydration is super key out there.
Mhm.
I know from what little research I've done on it that that kind of stuff is hereditary. There can be guys in just fantastic shape, and then they get above 10,000. 10,000 is kind of like the magic number. You get above 10,000, and some people that are just in incredible shape and super athletic just can't handle elevation. Like I said,
Mhm.
I'm nobody special. I do a lot of cardio. I do an insane amount of, you know, the fan bike or whatever, the assault bike, they
Mhm.
call it, plus road biking and things like that. And I'm just always cognizant of keeping my heart rate up pretty high, because I just know, like my first hunt, looking at my Garmin watch, like after a few days, like when I felt like I was resting like I am now, I'd look down and my heart rate was still like 135, and I feel like
Yeah.
kind of even keel. It's like, damn, you know what I mean? But that's good
Right.
cardio. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When you can sit there and just kind of be resting at 150, you know, most, like when I train on a bicycle, when I do road bikes, like I did 20 miles this morning, my average heart rate for an hour is about 150, 155. So that's kind of the pace
Mhm.
I always want to be in, kind of like that 150 to 160 zone. And it takes a while to get to, but I just know, like, once you get up in the mountains, like it's hard to explain until you're finally there,
Yep.
you know, when you get into that thin air. But fortunately for me, after a couple of days, um, I acclimate pretty quickly, but that's again, that's something that people need to kind of consider, because you want to get out there and you're
Yep.
excited, you want to get to hunting, and then you could just kind of crash way too early. So it's something to really, when you're focused on your training along with your step ups and doing pack hikes and things like that, mixing in the, the cardio as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got now that we've done the fitness. Okay, so I guess kind of going forward, we've tiptoed around it, kind of talked about gear, but what would you say is like, obviously, if you can afford the best of the best, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But what is like bare minimum gear that you would think that you need going? I guess
Yeah.
because you can go by yourself. I feel like you need more, but even if you're going with a partner out there, what is like bare minimum gear for wearing, and then as far as like shelter and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, great question. No, that's a really good question. I wasn't going to leave without getting to that. Even if this is a 2-hour podcast, I don't care. We're going to cover it today,
Okay,
kids.
there we go.
But no, honestly, looking back in hindsight, and this was advice that was given to me that I had heard, and I agree with. Boots are going to be on your feet all day. Spend the money on boots. I took a chance on Crispies, and I bought a set of Crispy Colorados because I'm like, hey, Colorado. And they had actually just come out at the time. They were a brand new boot at the time. And so I got those. They right out of the box, they fit my feet really well. I know boots are tricky for everybody because everyone has different feet. So they might not be for you. We're not even going to talk about boots. I just know that they're a high quality boot. They've out of the box. They broke in easily for me. Comfortable, lightweight, durable for that type of hunting. Very stiff ankles. I needed that ankle support. And I've been happy with them. So I did not mind spending the $400 or whatever on boots. So because you're gonna wear boots all day, man. Boots are gonna be on your feet all day. Match it with a really high quality pair of socks. I've been using Darn Tough and Smart Wool. I really like the Darn Tough. Darn Tough of Vermont is the company. Incredible socks. And then make friends with a product called Luco tape. It's a surgical tape that when you put it on your skin, it does not come off for days and days. But I've started putting it on the spots where I've gotten blisters or know that I will get blisters, and that stuff will stay on your feet for literal days. And when I came home last year, my wife's like, "Are you going to take that stuff off?" And we're in the shower, you know what I mean, get cleaned up. And she's like, "You going to take that tape off?" I'm like, "It's not ready to
Can't
come off.
Can't yet."
Nope. Needs to be. How long has it been on? I'm like, I think this is day 6.
Oh my Lord.
But again, some protective tape, great pair of socks, great pair of boots. Working up the body, you can go into Walmart right now and buy, damn, they were laying here too. Wrangler makes, I think they're just called their outdoor adventure pants. They make them in a few different colors. They make a gray, which fits like a traditional hiking pant, kind of loose, kind of comfortable. And then they make like an olive green, like a dark green. That's a little bit more of like that tapered style that seems to be kind of popular these days. $20. Great pants. Called my first and only bull in wearing a $20 pair of Wranglers, kids. So he didn't know any different. You know what I mean? I always joke around like, and I had a $200 pair of Sitka pants in the truck. So the first and only bull I've ever called in, I was wearing a $20 pair of Wranglers.
Love
dummy.
Love
yeah.
it.
So yeah. And like I said, I always look at my Sitka pants, and I wear them now. Obviously I bought them, I paid for them. And once I put those pants on, I was like, holy Jesus, I'm never going to wear the Wranglers again to hunt in, because I have these pants now. But to answer your question, a $20 pair of Wranglers, base layers, I think are pretty important. I did go with the Sitka Core Lightweight top and bottom base layer. Now it's summertime out there, so I don't like base layers on my legs, but I will wear them at night as kind of a liner inside my sleeping bag, kind of like pajamas, So I very rarely bust out the bottoms, but I do take them. They're lightweight. They don't weigh anything. They throw in the pack. The Core Lightweight hoodie, if you can afford it, man, that's a great piece. It's a half zip, comes down halfway so you can dump a bunch of heat. It's got a hood, built-in face mask, paper thin, super lightweight, moves moisture great. But again, it's a little pricey. You can probably walk into a Walmart and find, or some other like a Bass Pro or whatever, and find some kind of an athletic, like an Under Armour, like I'm wearing an Under Armour t-shirt right now. If you could find this in like a charcoal gray or a brown, you could probably get it for a lot less than the Sitka, something that's going to wick moisture. Stay away from cotton, kids. Same thing with your underwear. I switched over to, I bought a pair of Sitka synthetic underwear. I've got their merino plus their synthetic to try. I like both, but I tend to wear the synthetic in the summertime or in the hotter temps. And then I just ended up buying like a 6-pack of some other kind of synthetic men's boxer briefs. Okay. Right. So that's what I wear on the daily. And I like the synthetics. It's cool down there, moves moisture well, all jokes aside, but a synthetic underwear. And again, like I said, if the money's a thing, man, like I said, you could find a long sleeve. I like a long sleeve, lightweight, either a merino or a synthetic. And there's a great debate on merino or synthetic, and I'm not going to go down that road. It's like Barklow says, it's shooter's choice on that. They both work great. They both move moisture. Merino is a little bit better for odor control. Synthetic will dry quite a bit faster. So I like the synthetic for elk hunting. And like I said, for a fraction of the cost of the Sitka, you can just get out there with a lightweight. The long sleeve, getting back to what I was saying, can definitely keep the sun off your arms, because you will get sunburnt. Believe me, you'll get sunburnt out there. So I do not like, having a short sleeve shirt on there. Up top, I've gotten into the habit of having some kind of windbreaking layer, like a lightweight windbreaker for those chilly mornings out there. And again, I'm kitted out with all the Sitka stuff, but if you're on a budget, you could probably find a lightweight, like a windbreaker, and then some sort of an active insulation piece, or like a fleece piece, like a lightweight. Because here's the thing that you got to realize: most of the month of September, and I know the weather can vary, but most of the time in September, Colorado, it's going to be cloudless and 75 during the day and 45 or 50 at night. I mean, yes, there are some snowstorms that roll through, and yes, you can get the pop-up showers, the pop-up hail storms that run in and run out, especially as you get towards the latter part of the month and it starts to get into fall, and you get some of those freak, snowstorms. But the first half of the month, it's going to be just kind of hot and dry. So, you don't need as much as you think, as far as that goes, so a lightweight base layer, a hoodie, of some sort for your early morning chill. I would even say, instead of a windbreaker type of jacket, just your rain gear, like a lightweight raincoat. You can go into, again, you can go into Walmart and, or a Bass Pro, and buy, the first year I went out there, had the frog togs. Have you ever heard of those?
I've not. No.
It's like rain. Yeah. They sell it at Cabela's. Like, you can get the rain jacket and pant combo for like $80. And if you leave it in your pack, it packs down fairly well for what it is. It's not, like I said, it's not the top tier, super packable, high end, brands. But again, we're talking about just getting out there. You need a raincoat, and that raincoat can double as your windbreaker layer if you're on a glassy knob, or it's just blowing that morning and it's kind of cutting through you. You need to have something, and typically the rain gear is going to, add that as well. And then, a lot of guys will talk about a puffy coat, and all a puffy coat is just like your big outer insulation. Most of the time you're going to wear that at night in camp, or if you're having lunch on the mountain and you're in the shade and it's cold, because believe me, it's 75 in the sun, 50 in the shade, like no joke. And that 50 degrees, especially when it's been summer all year, summer, all summer, back in Ohio, and that humidity, 50 degrees in Colorado in the shade is way different than 50 here. When there's no humidity, it just feels that much colder. So having some kind of a puffy coat, dude, I saw one at TJ Maxx one day, just like it was like a bargain store, right? I went to TJ Maxx and found like a puffy coat from, like, I don't know if it was Patagonia, but it was like 50% off. It was like a $200 coat for like $100. And it was like brown. I'm like, this would have been a perfect puffy coat. Go to garage sales and find a puffy coat. Get online, go to a Facebook buy, sell, trade. If you really want some like Sitka gear or whatever brand, every brand has like a Facebook buy, sell, trade place that you can go to. So I would highly recommend maybe looking into that, because guys are selling, last year's
Yeah.
model coats, last year model gear, or maybe they, put on some weight and they just got to sell.
They
So
gotta sell.
every now and then I'll see, some of that stuff for sale, or just hit up some bargain cave stuff. Like I said, the elk don't care what pattern you're wearing. The mountain doesn't care
Yeah.
what pattern. Like I said, it's going to throttle you no matter what you're wearing. But there are
Mhm.
some, again, there are some kind of like some basic stuff. Like I said, a lightweight hiking pant, a lightweight top, whether it be a synthetic or merino, some kind of insulation piece, like a hooded sweatshirt of some sort, or active insulation, something with a little bit of loft to it, or
Yeah.
like a fleece layer, if you will. Rain gear, puffy coat, ball cap, or some kind of a sun hat.
Yeah.
I bought like a boonie hat, one of those that covers up your ears and
Yeah.
things like that too. I got one of those, folds up and throws in the pack. And again, like a rain coat. I don't really have rain pants because my pants will dry pretty damn fast.
Mhm.
And like, God, like I said, the first year I should have wrote down my gear list of everything I bought, because I went overkill on
Right.
on everything. But looking back, like I said, I could probably buy for, for under $500, and that's including boots. I could probably, it'd probably be a little bit more, because the boots are probably going to cost about 400, but from the boots up, for another couple $100, you'd be good to
Yeah.
go for the price. Like I said, a pair of
Yeah.
Sika mountain pants is $200. That $200, I could take you to the store right now and get you kitted out and get you through
Right.
elk season. I really think I
Yeah.
could. I know I could. So yeah, you don't need as much as you think when it comes out there, really. And then as far as packs go, obviously, I use a Kafaru, great company. I honestly feel they're the best out there, but they are, I mean, you're going to pay for that quality.
Mhm.
Again, go to a buy, sell, trade website or Facebook page. Guys are selling packs left and right. Nice ones too. They
Mhm.
used it for a year, or they bought it and it's not the one they want. It might be the one you want, and there's a lot of really good deals. I've got what I need. You need a pack for 3 to 5 days tops, something around 4,000 ish cubic inches, is kind of the go-to, regardless of what company, you
Mhm.
choose. My first pack is a 4,400 cubic inch pack. And once you learn how to pack a pack, then it
You say
makes a
that's
lot
an
of,
art form in and of itself.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's another podcast we could do as well, as what Jason should have left at home, because I did. I've my pack has gotten, John and I, we talked a while back. He's like, I can tell you're getting better, because you're when I talk to you about your pack and the weight, like it's getting smaller and smaller, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. He's
Yeah.
like, that's a sign of that you're
You're
learning
getting
when
it.
when your pack starts getting lighter and lighter,
Yeah.
So and I'm not trying to be like Mr. Ultralight or anything like that, but it's definitely something,
Knowing the essentials.
yeah.
Yep.
And then taking a notepad. My buddy Todd told me the same thing. He's like, when you're out there in the field, take a little notepad with you.
Yep.
Write everything down, from like, maybe a cool bird that you saw or an experience that you had, because you might forget some of those things on the way home.
Mhm.
But one of the most important things is write down the gear that you took, and then write down what you used and what never left your pack. After
Yep.
2 or 3 years of doing this, I've realized my Leatherman has never made it out. And that sucker weighs a pound, and a pound is a lot. Okay. A pound is a lot.
Yep.
Now I have a knife that literally weighs like 2 ounces. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So, I mean, those ounces do add up. And that's something I've definitely learned. Try to make your pack, as light as possible without, killing yourself. You don't want to go so light that you put yourself in a situation, where you don't have any safety gear or anything like that. But, yeah, but you can get a pack online. I guess the point I'm trying to make is you can get a good pack. Just get whatever,
Yep.
whatever you can afford, and just work your way up to buying that quality pack. And I will say, honestly, between boots and a pack, like, if you had to put a gun to my head and said, what do I do? I would say save your money and just buy once, cry once, and just
Yep.
get the Kafaru. Honestly, I really would, because you're going to have it for life. They stand by their
Yeah.
product. Great company, not sponsored. But again, that was one of the top gear items I bought that I did not regret. Like
Mhm.
some of the clothing and stuff like that, I could have done without, but like the pack has fit. It's rugged. It fits properly,
Yeah.
and it rides properly, and it carries the weight properly. And I've never had an issue with things breaking because I beat the hell out of them, year round doing other stuff. And so, yeah, again, you can save your money on clothing and put it in, because that pack's going to be on your back all day. The puffy coat might not. That puffy coat
Yeah.
might ride the pack all week long.
And if that
as
pack's
what
not comfortable, you want to preserve your back, because the better the pack, the better the fit, the longer you're going to be able to be out in the mountains.
Yeah. And when you're carrying an elk quarter on your back, you want to have a pack that's going to carry that. You may have to go miles, with 55, 75, 100 pounds on your back. So you don't want to just go El Cheapo
Right.
on your pack while you're wearing your $200 pants and your $300 hoodie. You know what I mean? And so spend wisely. If you have $500 to spend, I definitely put it into a pack before I put it
Yep.
into clothing. Like I said, we can go to Walmart and get you kitted out on clothes. A good pack and a good boots is an investment. That's like we talked about in the beginning. There's spending money, and then there's investing money.
Money, yep.
The investing money is definitely in a pack that's gonna last you for sure.
So when you're out there too, do you have anything as far as like med kit that you keep on you just in case,
Yeah, that's a good question, because I've actually, another one of those things I did the first year that was kind of dumb when I look back on it now, is I went to, like, I think it was Bass Pro, because I got a Bass Pro like 20 minutes from the house, and Cabela's only 40 minutes from the house. And I just literally walked into Bass Pro, and I went into the camping section, and you've got like a med kit that's like little tiny, and it gets bigger, and they're all the same thing. It's all that red foldy kit or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm grabbing the one in the middle. And I never opened that son of a bitch. I never opened it once for like a couple of years. And then, going back to John Barklow, talking of, I think he did a thing on medical kits. And one of the things he said was like, have you ever even looked in there? Like all the dumb stuff there's like a little tiny compass in there. I'm like, what the hell is that? And then there's like all these weird medications and things, and I really lightened that pack up. I finally last year was like, okay, what do I really need out here? What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to cut myself with a broadhead probably, or my knife, or just one of the disposable knife blades. In fact, I cut myself with it right after I got the damn thing at Christmas. I pulled it out of the sheath like a dummy, and my finger was hanging over top the sheath. And I'm like, oh, like, dummy. Dang it. So Band-Aids. Okay. Melatonin for nighttime, relaxing, calming you down. PMs, Advil PMs, if you don't do melatonin, works kind of the same. And then just straight up Advil or ibuprofen for muscle aches, because you're going to get crazy muscle aches, cramps, and things like that. So tons of ibuprofen, different types of Band-Aids, like the butterfly style Band-Aids. Think about, because you're probably going to cut fingers if you're going to cut anything. Tourniquet, which is something I don't have yet, and that's something that's on the list to purchase, and then learn how to use the tourniquet.
That's something I've been wanting to do, for not even just hunting, but just in general, just to have that. Like, I've got a tourniquet, but taking a stop the bleed class or something like that, just to have the knowledge, super important. I feel, especially when you're out there, and that could be, life or death. If you do cut yourself with your broadhead or your blade in just the right spot, and being able to stop that, and
you could have everything else dialed, and that one thing you needed that you didn't buy. Like I said, I'm guilty of that. I don't have one. I'm going to look on Amazon and do a little research and find, if I have to spend the money, I'll spend, it's again, an investment. But I did take a bunch of stuff out, a bunch of like salves and creams and like snake bite stuff
just in case.
Get out of here, with all this stuff. So I cleaned it up. Like I said, I made my own med kit with Band-Aids from the house. I have quality Band-Aids. Leuko tape goes on everything. Like, I carry like a half a dozen lighters, and each one has about 1.5 foot of Leuko tape wrapped around it. Or duct tape, is wrapped around it. Like every lighter I own, which is all for, I don't smoke, so every lighter that I have in the house has got tape wrapped around it. Michelle's like, why do you need this tape? And it's like, it's for backcountry hunting, babe. But
babe.
So I you don't even know. Like John said to put it on there. But anyway, Leuko tape on everything. So like I said, when I need something, whether it's tape a finger up, or to tape up a blister, that kind of thing. A little tube of Neosporin. I did buy a little tiny bottle of like liquid camp soap. It's just a couple of ounces.
Okay.
I need a couple of drops because I can wash my hands at night, pop my
Yep.
contacts, in and out of my eyes with semi-clean hands, because you do get dirty out there. Um, but yeah, that's kind of really it. There was like gauze and stuff. I think I might have left the one thing of gauze in there, but
Mhm.
like Leuco tape kind of sort of takes the place of all that. Oh, here's another one. Super glue, little tiny tube of super glue.
Mhm.
Did not realize that it's non-toxic for small cuts. You can actually kind of stitch yourself up with super glue.
Done
There's
that at
another one.
work.
Yeah,
Done that at work. Just a
I
little
did.
bit of super glue to hold it in for the bit.
My wife, she's notorious for cutting her fingers, and she cut herself. And I think it was right after Christmas. And so I'm like, babe, let me get the super glue and some Leuco tape. But she was
I'm
not,
on it.
she was not having it. Like, let me go get my backcountry kit. No. So I did. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. Like, the stuff's non-toxic. You can put it on your finger. She was not, we finally
Not
did. I'm like,
having it.
look, this is like a stitches kind of cut. I'm like, let's just put a freaking drop of the super glue. We got in this little fight, but she ended
Yeah.
up doing it, and putting it on there just to kind of heal it up. And it did. So that was something I really didn't know up until a couple of years ago, that you could use
Yep.
super glue. All jokes aside, it can come in handy. Obviously huge lacerations, tourniquet, or you might require stitches, but if you're in the field, so I've lightened up my kit quite a bit. But I always kind of go back through it just to remember, like, what's in there. Did I use any
Mhm.
Band-Aids? Because I think I did use a couple of Band-Aids. Obviously, when I'm out there, I'm eating Advil like they're candy, because I get, because at the end of the day, your feet are just smoked, your back,
Yeah.
your legs, and everything. And,
Mhm.
a melatonin and a couple of Advil just help you sleep, because it can be hard to sleep out in the backcountry, especially your first night.
Yep.
Even if you did hike 5 or 6 miles, the anxiety, things are kicking in. So you do kind of want to maybe have something to give you a little bit of, calming. And there are some products out there that you can add into water that are like for slumber, for sleeping aids and
Okay.
things. There's different, companies out there that you can make like a tea that will help relax you, or just take some kind of like herbal tea out there or whatever. But yeah, as far as the med kit goes, I'm actually trying to like simplify it to where when I get in there, I know what's in there. I know how to
Mhm.
use it. Not going to overcomplicate anything, because there's a good chance it might just be me out there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely a good thing to, yeah, another lesson learned in my first year. I just grabbed the med kit and threw it in. At least I had
It's fine.
something, right?
Right.
Well, if there's an emergency, you open it up and you're just going to be fumbling through a bunch of shit, pardon
Mhm.
my language, but you don't want to. You want to know when you get in your med kit, you've got, tweezers. I have tweezers, and things like that. But just simple stuff. Keep it
Yep.
simple.
Yeah, yeah, because I was listening to the Woodside podcast with Ben O'Brien's podcast, his new
Mhm.
one, and I forget who it was, but he had somebody on who was basically was out hunting elk and tripped and fell, and I guess it's something too to kind of like going out there, making sure the broadheads when they're in the quiver or wherever you have them, that they're stored in a good spot where they aren't going to fall, because he tripped and fell. One fell out of the quiver, cut his leg, had to stop, put the tourniquet on, and he shared that, the guy shared it on his Instagram story of just like, like, I've been doing it for years, something I'm learning from. And he's like, well, now I'm so afraid of it that I probably, guys would laugh at how big my med kit is, but he goes, I'm not taking that chance again. And some dude did message him. He's like, yo, I showed my buddy that you did this, and I made fun of it at first, but then literally the next day I was out there and this dude really messed up. I don't remember exactly how he did, but ended up his whole arrow went through his quad, missed his femoral artery by like inches. And he goes, I was like, okay, so
Yeah.
making sure that's secured in a good way where that doesn't fall out, obviously, like,
Yeah.
something to look for. But
Yeah. When
no,
I
it
carry
wasn't.
my bow on my backpack, actually, I saw a guy, like you said, the arrow fell out
Mm-hmm.
because the broadhead was on
It's so
when
heavy.
it was carrying his backpack, it just came out. So I flipped my bow upside down to where my arrows are actually facing
Yeah.
down into the quiver cushion. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I kind of, because I watch people carry their bows and they carry it upright, right? And they just attach it to their pack upright. So if the arrow is going to slide, it's going to slide right out
And those
and fall
suckers are
down.
sharp.
and those sucker, yeah. So I flip my bow upside down. So if it's gonna, obviously something can still catch it and kind of flick it out. At least it's got a better chance being kind of stuck in the
Right.
quiver there. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, you just never know. You're so focused on chasing bugling bulls. You kind of get
Yeah.
into that mindset, and yeah, it only takes a second. So having those basic things,
Hmm.
preparedness, and like I said, I'm learning too. I'm
Yep.
taking the time to kind of watch a little bit more content on those types of things than I am like guys just chasing elk and bugling and all that fun stuff. Like I'm trying to do some
Hmm.
education because obviously I'm doing this each year now. It isn't just a
Yeah.
one and done thing for me. It's something that like, hey, I'm going out with a partner this year, but if he decides to rifle hunt next year, which we're talking about, I might be solo again. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
like, hey, I gotta learn. Plus, it's just cool. It's part of. That's the cool thing about Western big game hunting, especially like the backpack style. It's really more than just hunting. There's so many components of safety and
Hmm.
woodsmanship and how to build a fire and you know packing your pack the right way and
There's
logistics
so
of
many rabbit
route,
holes.
yeah, route planning and elevation sickness and meal prep and just all this
Hmm.
stuff, man. It is really
There's,
like a year in fitness and yeah, diet, and it's just a year round thing. Budget and planning and things like that. And if you're really that serious about it, it'll
yeah.
it'll shape you. Because like I said, if it wasn't for elk hunting, I don't know how serious I'd be about going to the gym
Right.
or really, I'm always planning, I'm always budgeting and things like that, which is it's kind of what I do for a living in the financial industry. But like it really helps me focus like, hey, I want to do this so bad. I know September comes every year, so I've got X amount of time to like budget
Yep.
for the elk tag, budget for the food I'm going to take, budget for the fuel I'm going to use,
Yep.
and yeah, as the years go on, then maybe you can acquire that new piece of gear,
Here and there. Yep.
and just like really just get out there, just get the cheap tent from Walmart, get you a sleeping bag, get you a sleeping pad, you know, um, get you a good set of boots because you're going to be hiking, but piece, get used gear everywhere else and just go out there and have fun.
Yeah. And so one of the things too on your gear, are you bringing out rangefinder and binoculars? And if so, what's that look like for you?
Yeah, that's a good one. I actually have, I guess the binos I have now, don't laugh, but they're 20 years old and they're like an 8 by
That's
42
almost as old as me.
yeah, I know, right? They're like an 8 by 42 by Leupold, Wind River. I bought them at like Cabela's up in Dundee, Michigan back in like 2000. And
Okay.
I still have them. I haven't bought a new set of binos yet. Because one, a couple of places I've hunted have been so dark timbered that I didn't really need binos.
Right.
You can look through the timber, whatever, but I'm not hunting in areas where I'm doing a lot of like far away glassing. I mean, this year
Hmm.
we are, but I just gonna have to use what I have. Same thing with
Hmm.
the rangefinder. I bought $100 rangefinder and it works just fine.
Yeah.
Not to say that, down the road I might upgrade to something, but dude, hey, gas prices are affecting me too. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like this rangefinder, I just need to range something within a couple hundred yards, and that's what it does. If I can see a
Perfect.
bull a
Yeah.
couple hundred yards away and know he's 200 yards, or know that, I just need to know that he's in bow range.
Yep.
I just need to know what 50 yards looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. So an inexpensive rangefinder, um, something that'll do the job. I can't remember the name of mine, but I think I might have got it from Walmart, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So super, super inexpensive. Like I said, the binos, if you don't have any and you need to buy some, I'd say something in like a 10 by for out there, like a 10 by 42, is generally kind of the rule. Anything above that, I mean, it's great, but if you want to come back home and whitetail hunt or whatever, an 8 by or a 10 by, I think a 10 by would be, fine for both. My next set will be a 10 power, but the 8 by is just a little bit better in low light conditions, kind of
Hmm.
closer ranges, not to get too deep down into that stuff. But that's kind of, my thinking when I bought those. But yeah, I have what I have. I'm running what I've had for
Yeah.
years. And that's one of those things where, again, it's like, oh man, I got to buy a brand new pair of Swarovskis. No, you don't. If you've got a pair of binos right now, if you've got some that are, like I said, an 8 by or a 10 by of any brand, they're going to get you through They're going to get
Right.
you through the 5 days that you're going to be out. And that's the other thing too. You're going to be out there for a week. You know what I mean? So like, you really got to think about like, how much do I really want to spend for this week, and what do I need versus what do I want? You
Yep.
know? And again, I'm being the first to admit, like I got sucked up in a lot of that romanticism of Western big game hunting. And, it cost me a lot of money. It did. It cost me a ton of money. And so anything, when we do podcasts like this, or I do my own,
Mhm.
like, kind of want to emphasize, like, I kind of make fun of myself a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, someone like you or someone that's listening, might be kind of wrapped up in that too. Like, man, I got to buy a couple $1,000s worth of this or that. It's like, no, you don't, man. Just get your tag, get you some fuel,
Get
buy you
out
some
there.
guy. Yeah, man, buy you some mountain houses. And you don't even have to really do the backpack thing. Don't think that you have to like go miles deep. You can hunt right from the truck. You can hunt for a couple of days right from the truck, set up the tent and just spike out for the day and come back, whatever. Don't
Right.
feel that you have to go. Cause that's the other thing too. Like these guys, I've talked to a few guys already over the last couple of years that are like, I'm going back for 10 days solo. It's like, never done it, never been out west, never seen the Rockies. I'm going out for 10 days solo. I'm going 5 miles deep. I'm like, first of all, no, you're not. And
Good
second of
luck.
all, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever going back a couple of miles is like an eye-opening experience.
Yep.
Like you can look on a map and be like, all right, this is about 3.5 miles into this basin. You get about 800 yards into one, and you're like, oh man, like 3
Mhm.
mile, we ain't making it 3 miles. You know what I mean? We did that last year in a couple of spots. It was like, dude, there's no way we're getting not in one day. It's going to take us 2 days just to hike there, because of
Right.
the terrain and the way the terrain was laid out. So yeah, guys think they're going to go back 5 miles deep, and then they realize after about a half a mile that's like they're huffing and puffing, and all they're
Mhm.
doing is climbing because nothing looks like it does on Google Earth
No.
versus like reality.
And
Like
I
it's
know you've said too, even like, just when's the last time that you slept in a tent and camped? Like, just being
oh
used to
yeah,
that. Just,
dude,
I know that's something
yeah.
you've said several times throughout on your podcast, and I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Like all these guys, like going out there, I mean, like it seems like a cool idea, but if you've not done even just that in the
Mhm.
backyard and get used to it again, like
Yeah, that's
that
another
can
one.
be,
That's another one. I'll tell that story real quick. So
yeah.
we went out to Colorado in 2019 to do a scouting trip. In this unit, we were going to hunt, and like I said before, I threw the backpack on. It was super heavy. I was like, oh no. And then I set up this floorless shelter, right, that I'd only set up in the backyard. And it's nighttime. The sun's going down. I feel like crap because I've got like this elevation thing going on that I wasn't even prepared for. So I feel terrible. And I go to lay down and I crawl in this sleeping bag that was a mummy style bag, which I've never slept in one of those. Right. And I'm on the ground. I have a ground pad, an inflatable ground pad. So I had one of those. And I remember laying there going, I'm 42 years old. I literally have not slept in a tent in 30 years. I've
Yeah.
not slept in a tent. I've not laid it. And this is a floorless. So there's like grass poking up and there's like dirt. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I kind of got like the anxiety thinking about it now kind of gives me anxiety. It's like, dude, what do like you were so focused on all this other stuff. You haven't even slept in a tent in
Right.
so many years. And so like it hit me pretty hard because I'm laying there and like I got bad headaches because my head was actually going, down where it should have been propped up to have the blood because the blood
Oh,
was
yep,
rushing
yep,
to
yep,
my
yep.
head. So I learned that lesson really fast. And like I said, the oxygen thing was really bad. I didn't sleep at all that very first
Yeah.
night because I didn't know what was going on. Every time I laid down, I was getting a headache. But like I said, my head was below my heart, and it was just a very slight decline. So I swap the sleeping bag the next night and got like 6.5 hours of sleep straight. And like I said, it was an adjustment period to where I don't have the floorless anymore. I have a tent, an actual tent, because
Yep.
I realized I don't like floorless shelters, but that's like the popular thing. Everyone's sleeping under a tarp, and I get out there and the one time I found mouse turds in my sleeping bag after I came back from hunting all day, and I saw the
Yeah.
mouse.
No.
Then I saw them, and then there were ants in the one spot. So I'm laying in bed, and like these giant black ants were crawling in my sleeping bag at night,
Yep.
and I'm like, that's it. So I sold that, and then bought a actual floored tent, and I love it. So I learned that lesson.
It's the
Yeah.
little things in life.
Dude, it really
Yeah.
is that you're only going to get from when you go out there. But I never gave up. I could have easily
Mhm.
come home and just sold everything and been like, I'll just stick to watching YouTube. But like the being out in the mountains, it really, like they say, oh, the mountains call to you. They do. They really do. I mean,
Mhm.
once you're out there, once you experience it, um, no matter how like scared you might get or homesick or beat up, bruised, and blistered or whatever, like when you're looking in the rear view at the mountains as you're going home, you're just like, oh, I'm planning the next hunt. I can't wait to go
Mhm.
back. And like I said, if I know we're probably running on time here, but the big takeaway is like, because I've come off the mountain early a few times and I've really regretted it. But in that moment, you just feel like you just want to quit. You miss your wife
Yeah.
and kids, you miss home, you miss your stupid cats or whatever. And then you
Yeah.
get in the truck and then you start to leave and then
You're
you
like,
see the mountains in the rear view and you're just like, why am I going home?
it's like, wait
The
a
hell am
minute.
I doing
What
in
did I just
Kansas? Yeah,
right?
why am I on my way home? And then you get
Mhm.
home and you realize like, the wife didn't miss you that much, right? As soon as you get home, you got chores to do. Okay, so you're done playing Mountain Man. So I guess you can mow the lawn today. And you're like,
Yeah.
shit, I should still be on the mountain. I
Like,
came home three
dang
days early.
it.
The boss is calling, like, hey, you came home early. There's this project. And you're like, fuck, man, I don't want to do that project. Screw that guy. You want to come back into work today since you're home?
Right.
And you're just like kicking yourself, right? Because it is hard, man.
Mhm.
It's really challenging if you've never been away from your little girl, your 4-month-old daughter and your kids and your
Yeah.
wife, and you've never done that. Like and you're doing it solo. Jesus, man. Like I
Good.
drive from
Yeah.
Ohio to Colorado by myself, and it's like, get a little choked up thinking about certain stuff, and like, but you got to
Yeah.
stay focused, and but it's like I said, man, when you leave, you start wondering why you're leaving, and then you're already planning next year's hunt, but
Yeah.
it's something that I talk about frequently on the podcast because my biggest regret is coming off the mountain early due to piss poor planning, over
Mhm.
expectations of what I thought the hunt was going to be, not having the appropriate gear and purchasing gear that I didn't need. Having a Garmin InReach that first year might have kept me out there. I called in a
Mhm.
bull on Saturday, right? And
Yep.
was leaving, I think, Tuesday morning. Like that bull is probably going to work his cows and come back into that area. If I'd have just had something to communicate with the wife every so often, dude,
Just
that'd have been a
yeah.
game changer. Here's another one. I went into town after a few days and found this really kick-ass pizza shop that I go to frequently now, and I'm kind of in that area.
Yep.
And like I was going to go home, and then I had that pizza, and it was like I got a hotel, and like I'll see how I feel in the morning. I remember talking to my wife. I'm like, I'll see how I feel in the morning. And she's like, you spent a lot of money. She's like, I'm not telling you what to do. You do whatever you want, but I'm just reminding you spent a lot of money to come home early. So I'm
Yeah.
like, all right. So I went to bed and I woke up the next morning and it was like someone flipped a switch. I'm like, I'm packing my shit. I'm getting back on the mountain. I'm going to do this. I was so excited to get back on
I'm
that
curious,
mountain.
what kind of pizza did you get?
Oh, it was a pepperoni, banana pepper, green pepper
Okay.
pizza, handmade.
There
I'll
we
tell
go. I
you where
was
the
gonna say,
place is at after
yeah,
we're done
yeah.
recording. I don't want to give away the pizza place because people look it
Right.
up, be like, I know what
I was
Unity's
gonna say
hunting.
if we can at least know the style of pizza and what was on it because like that's key. That's key.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the best I've ever had. It's all hand tossed, handmade dough, and yeah, that's a
I'm gonna
whole.
say that could
That's
be a
that's
whole
that's for
special. They do the elk special to get you back out in the mountains, you know.
I tell you, just a crappy cheeseburger from McDonald's would do it, man. Just to get back into civilization and to
Right.
have, a little bit of contact with real people. Because I've heard it so many times, and it is really true. Because your mind's trying to kill you. Your mind's trying to
Mhm.
get you off the mountain. Your mind is telling you this is dangerous. You need to get back to your truck. You need to go home because it's scary out here. It's dark. When it gets dark in the wilderness, it gets dark. And I'm not making that up. Like the first time the sun went down when I was by myself out in the mountains, it was like,
Oh,
holy hell. Like you watch that
doing
show
one of
Alone.
these,
Yeah,
trying to see
exactly.
your hands in
Like
front of your
dark,
face.
dark. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so it's like those firsts. It's all those firsts. And I had a guy on the podcast. He was the co-founder of Under Armour, Kip Fulks.
Oh,
And
yep, yep.
we talked about that stuff quite extensively. And he's like, dude, it's just your mind. basically telling you to get off the mountain. It wants your body to be safe, because if you pay attention, once you do that, once you get to your truck, everything's fine. Like, 2 hours ago, you were up on this mountain scared to death, and you're mad, and you missed your wife, and you're just like, I hate this. And you get back to the truck and you crack open a Mountain Dew, and you're like, kind of got the AC on, and you're just like, you're feeling good now. And it's like, it was all a lie. Your mind, you weren't in any danger back there. You were fine. Your mind is telling you these things.
Yep.
And it's something that I've had to go through. The last couple of years, like I said, I don't like to admit it, but I think it needs to be admitted, because guy like you, or guy, or gal that's listening, so hyped to go out there, and they get out there and it's like, nobody talked about that, because all these guys are tough,
Yeah.
right? All these guys are tough guys,
Yeah.
and they'll want to make all the excuses of, oh, well, I left because, this and that and the other thing. And it was just, there was no elk in the we just came home early. Nah, I came home because I don't know, I lost my shit out there, and I just don't want to, I just got frustrated, and I just didn't plan properly. And it's like, okay, that's what I have to talk about this year. So like
For
I said,
sure.
in my embarrassment, my big goal has been to try to share with others, like, hey, this is awesome. It's truly, truly awesome. But there's a lot that people don't talk about, because it is very, very difficult. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to do it. I think everyone has their own style. Some people love to be
Yep.
alone. Some people are like, hey man, I'm camping next to the truck, or I'm going to buy a camper that sits on my truck, and I'm not even sleeping in a tent. Cool. Pull a camper, or
Yep.
one of those little pop-up things on the bed of your truck, or sleep in the bed of your truck, whatever keeps you out there for a week. If you can do 2 or 3 days, and then go to Burger King and get you a burger,
Yep.
and then hang out in the parking lot with some Wi-Fi and FaceTime the old lady, and then go back up the mountain, trust me, because September only comes around once a year. You train and talk shit all year for 50 weeks out of the year, or 51 weeks, just to take that 1 week off, and you're going to blow it in 2 or 3 days.
And that's one of the things about like your podcast in general. And like when I first listened to you, was hearing that difference of you have your like Cameron Haynes or John Dudley and all these guys that go out and you see they're got this great success, and then your podcast, like just being real about it. And that was one of the things I was like, oh, okay. So it's not always, because you get like, obviously it's good for Instagram, good for YouTube and the views of getting that like high-end romanticism and all that. But then your side of things of like, no, this is the things that I've learned over time, and things that have gone in that have worked, not worked. And definitely it's kind of like just in general, when you study history, right? You learn from history. So like learning from somebody like you that has gone through it was eye opener. I'm like, okay, this is somebody I need to follow. And that's like what got me hooked initially.
Yeah. And like I said, honesty is kind of the best policy, and I don't plan on being this way, my whole life. Like I said, my big focus this last 12 months has been on more mental than anything, books, having people on the show that I feel are mentally tough, or have a mental edge over other people, and wonder why. Like I said, my nephew that I went with last year, he served in the Marines. He saw combat in, the Middle East. So he saw things and experienced things that guys like you and I have never or will never see. Levels of stress that are unfathomable. The dude slept in a desert in the Middle East under a tent, not even in a tent, basically just in a sleeping bag in the middle of the desert for weeks on end. And I'm over here bitching about like this tent that's like 40 feet away from my truck, or whatever. But it's that perspective, of surrounding yourself with people that, and it was great perspective, because things that I were getting stressed about, he was just like, dude, this is your first time doing this. You're checking this out. You'll never do this again for the first time. We got into a major lightning storm on day one of our scouting trip last year. Freaked me the hell out. And we're hiking, and I've never hiked up the mountain in the dark. So we were bushwhacking up the mountain in the dark, and the rains came, and the lightning came, and the hail came. And he's just like, dude, this is insane, right? And I'm just like, I'm not having it. I couldn't get a hold of my wife because my inReach wasn't working. Come to find out, it was working fine. I just didn't understand how those communication devices work properly. It just, the satellite, well, it was two part. One, satellites don't just you don't just send an instantaneous text all the time. Satellites have to kind of be in line, yada, yada, yada. Well, my wife had a friend over from, came into town from Los Angeles, and she just didn't have her phone on her. She sent me a text like 5 hours later, like, hey, I didn't, and I'm just like, why isn't she texting me? You know,
Like, oh no.
and so like mental games were being
Yeah.
played all the while we're on the side of this mountain with lightning and thunder like I've never heard in my life. Like the acoustics in this basin made the lightning like a bajillion times scarier.
Mhm.
Plus, when you're at like 10-5, like you're just that much closer.
Right.
You know, you're just that much closer to the lightning. So it's like, oh my God, we're gonna die.
It's right
But
there.
yeah, but you know, we made it through the night and it was like, gosh, that was cool. You know, in the moment, it's not. It's like what they call type
Mhm.
2 fun. You know, in the moment, it sucks bad. But to sit here in my comfortable couch and tell you about it,
And reflect back. Yep.
yeah, it's super fun. So I think the thing to remember that I've been trying to tell myself specifically, Matthew, is that, you know, you're only out there for a short amount of time, you know,
Mhm.
to keep it fun, do whatever you got to do to kind of stay out on the mountain. And like I said, mental, you know, educate yourself. Like there's a book out there called The Comfort Crisis.
Right here.
Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
right there. If for those who are watching the video.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
Yep, Barkla
Highly
recommended that.
Yep.
It's really good so far.
Michael Easter. If you're not a reader, but you like audio, you can get it on audio. I've listened to it twice now. It's incredible. And there's a lot of great, like little tidbits of info that I've actually used on my own to kind of combat this mental block that I have when I'm out there. Cause I'm so geeked about it right now. Christ, I got a podcast about it. Right.
Right.
And so, when I get out there, like I said, you know, I don't mind admitting I get out there and I get kind of lonely that first couple of days because I'm not in the groove. And it, you know, when there's nobody to like push me, like no one's going to tell me no. Next thing you know, Jason's in his truck again, you know, or whatever. And yeah, so this year, like the focus has been not on gear, not on elk calling, not even really on e-scouting, to be honest with you. It's all about like, how can I go out there and be the best I can mentally and emotionally? When I leave home, I need to leave home knowing that like everything's fine. You know what I mean? No baggage, no mental baggage with my family, no mental baggage with my job. Right.
Yep.
So when I leave, I know everything's fine. Because last year and the year before I left, I'll tell you this, and I know we're like, I'm just keeping you on here.
You're good. I got all the time.
The mental baggage I left with when I pulled out of my driveway, I had a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to go into it, but it was just like, you know, family stuff, and you're thinking about this and things didn't go right at work. And you just leave with like a bunch of stuff jumbled in your head. Not good when you're driving solo from Ohio to Colorado. Too much time to think about too much stuff. And, oh, should I even be doing this? Should I even be going out there? So you're talking yourself out of the mountain before you even get on the mountain. You know what I mean? And that is not how you start out the potential hunt of a lifetime. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was one of the things that I really, you know, paid attention to this past year of what kind of like torpedoed my hunt. You know, my nephew came out after I'd already been out there for like 3 or 4 days and was already kind of like, you know, and we talked about that after the fact. And it, like I said, when you're driving home, you feel like, you know, a piece of crap because you're like, why am I going home? It's the weirdest sensation. Anybody that's listening to this that has left a hunt early like that, they're like, yeah, you know what I mean? Because you're like, I'm fine now. I could still be there. And next thing you know, it's October, elk season's over. And you're like, damn, all that work just for that. And I came off the mountain early for whatever, maybe it was a legitimate reason.
Right.
But like I said, I left because I didn't have that communication device, which that's not even a legitimate reason. Cause I very well could have paid for one of those, you know, but again, you know, kind of beating a dead horse to death here. But like I said, there's so much that goes into this style of hunting way beyond cool gear. And that's why I'm happy to do what we're doing. And I know I'm just like kind of rambling on all these different rabbit holes and things like that. But it is, like I said, you know, my own evolution, not to pat myself on the back, because at the end of the day, the byproduct really is the filled tag. It's so much more than filling a tag. Like I said, I've had one really awesome elk encounter. So I feel confident that I can get into elk. I feel confident I can call in a bull, you know, because I already have. So I know I've got that piece there. But there's so many other layers, Matthew, to this style of hunting. And it's helped me at home. It's helped me on my little excursions, you know, because I hunt whitetails in and around where I live now. And some of the places are a couple hours away. So I still feel like I have that like away from home vibe where I'm
Yep.
going to be gone. So I kind of put myself into that mental situation where I'll leave at 4 in the morning and I won't come back till 10 o'clock at night. So I'm away from everybody and there's no service. There's no cell service in the one area that I hunt. So it kind of has some of those similarities.
Similar. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just I try to practice like putting myself in that zone of being away from the family, not having the cell phone, the communication and the
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and all those distractions. I try to, like, and even when things are going wrong at work and then that stress level comes up, I try to put myself in that perspective because it just gets amplified out in the
Yeah.
mountains. You know what I mean? So when I'm at home and there's something not going right with work and I kind of like, I get a little frustrated. I'm like, wait, figure it out. Stop, take a drink of
Mm-hmm.
coffee, sit back, shoot your bow, shoot an arrow real quick, come back in and let's answer that email or
Yep.
let's try to solve that. And it's like, oh, that's how you do it. Because before I'd just be like, blah,
Mm-hmm.
kind of ruin my day a little bit. Like I said, when you're on the mountain, you could be like, screw it, we're getting in the truck.
And it's
Right.
funny, kind of like, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like just going over this, and I like even just talking about like the gear, the things that could go wrong. Like, I feel like there's something just innately inside me, like where just the whole thing of the first time, even just hearing hunting, especially elk hunting, there's like, yeah, that stuff's gonna suck, but I feel a little crazy because that still excites me about the whole thing. Not just like obviously the romanticized
Yeah.
side of things, but like just the whole process, the journey, the story that
Oh
comes out
yeah.
of it. Like, and I think you kind of have to have that, and either you do or you don't. Because there's some guys that
Yeah.
have want nothing to do with big game Western hunting, and there's always something that was kind of there. My mom was actually just asking me about this last night actually, and she was like, "What got you into this?" Because my dad doesn't hunt. My really like the only one out of my like immediate like close relative family was my uncle, and
Yeah.
he's white-tailed hunt a couple times here or there, and that was it. And it was even something as a kid, I was just like always enamored by seeing like this different old videos on the outdoor channel, and like, oh, that'd be cool. And my uncle's like, well, if you do the old Bass Pro, like fill out the hunter safety course thing, we do this and we'll go take the course. And I filled it out. We just never ended up going. But it's like now all these years later, still kind of like kicking in the back of my mind and
Yeah.
seeing all this stuff. And I see that in you, even just, even though there's all this suck that goes behind it and the mental toughness, but I feel like it's all going to be worth it in the end. And just that story. And I don't know, I get excited about it, and I haven't even gone yet, like just hearing all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was the same way when I started racing four wheelers. My very first race, I had like a nervous breakdown getting ready to go down to the starting line. My dad was there and I just remember like, what am I doing here? In like the very first lap, I was so scared. I had, terrible arm pump and I couldn't even hold on to the bike. I got lapped twice by the entire, field or whatever in the first lap. And I just remember like in the moment, I just wanted to like quit. Like, why did I spend so much money on this four wheeler and all this gear? Like, I'm not even going to want to do this ever again. And then I did it again. I finished the race and like getting the checkered flag.
Yep.
Even though I got lapped like 3 times by like the women's pro class, which they're no joke anyhow. But I remember seeing the checkered flag and getting that feeling of like accomplishment that I finished. Didn't matter what place I was in, I finished. And so I know that feeling is there, in the mountains. Even though I came off early, that first year, I went back the next year.
Yep.
There's got to be something said for that. A guy that can just get in the truck and drive 1,500 miles one way by himself and then go out there by himself, even if he's still scared and lonely. Like there's guys that are just like, I ain't even doing that. I ain't doing that. I'm not going unless there's a group of 5 of us, and we're staying in a Best Western every night. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to say I'm a badass because I'm definitely not. Like I've got my flaws, but I'm not giving up on this because I, like you said, I know at the end of the rainbow, the elk rainbow, there's going to be that. And the success this year for me is predicated on not coming home early. That's it.
Yeah.
The success for me this year is like Mike and I, we do the whole week. If it's 5 days, 6 days, we're going to do the whole week. There's no quitting. He made it very clear. Like I'm not doing this. Like we're going to do this way. And this is the only, I'm like, yep. He's like, I'll drag you through it if I have to, man. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
So, and I want that. I'm looking forward to that. There's a little bit of anxiety, but at the same time, it's like, you're going to come out so much better. In that book, The Comfort Crisis, explains a lot of that stuff very, very well. And so I've seen that. And then, but I just know the reward, like I said, at the end, it isn't an elk. It isn't a filled tag. That's just like the icing on the cake, right? The reward is knowing that I've accomplished something and I did it on my own. I took on a challenge and I completed the challenge. I took on something that was like a mental, emotional challenge, because anybody can go to the gym, get fit, work out, and do all these things. But like that mental aspect is like critical. Like you can't like work out, do bicep curls for your brain. Like you got to just like tell your brain no, and then just keep going, because you're just robbing yourself. And that's the thing that pisses me off the most, is like I've robbed myself of so many days that I'll never get back from elk season the last couple of years because of piss poor choices, right? And it's like, I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anybody else. I want you to take that full week and just grind it out, man. And then the universe will reward you. The mountain's going to beat you. It's going to beat your ass every single day. But at some point in time, I thoroughly believe, the mountain's going to flick you a quarter and be like, here you go, kid. And then you're going to get, you know what I mean? You're going to you're going to get your chance at your bowl. And then it'll all make sense. And so
for sure,
like I said, to kind of wrap everything up, I think it's really about having fun. It's testing yourself, giving yourself the ability to work out year round with a goal, with a purpose, toughen yourself up mentally. So when you bring those, when you come off the mountain, you're a better person than you did when you walked onto the mountain. That is the ultimate goal, is to come. The Jason Holliday that's going to walk on the mountain this year is not going to be the same dude that walks off. I promise you that.
Yeah, absolutely. That couldn't say it better myself. That was perfect. Well, I think it's kind of a good spot to wrap things up. We've been going for almost 2 hours now.
Yeah,
but
told you, dude. The caffeine,
it goes by like that, though, man.
The caffeine.
It doesn't ever feel like it. You look down at the clock, and you're always like, "Oh, okay,
yeah."
Yeah, but why don't you go ahead, plug where people can find you? I'll link it down below too.
Sure.
And share it, but just so if people haven't heard it already.
Yeah, so it's the Harvest Holiday podcast. I spell Holiday. That's my last name. So I spell it with 2 L's. So it's Harvest Holiday with 2 L's, all one word, podcast. Pretty much find it wherever. And on Instagram, again, Harvest Holiday podcast on there. You can hit me up on that. I also have a personal page on there. It's just Jason Holiday 545. Holiday is also spelled with 2 L's on that. Either platform, I kind of post my content to both, but like a little bit more podcast and outdoor specific on the Harvest Holiday podcast Instagram page. So if that's your jam, you don't need to, if you don't care about my wife and I's Cancun pictures, or what I had for dinner 2 nights ago, or what whiskey I'm drinking tonight, just go to the podcast page. But yeah, Perfect. People can follow me there. And again, Matthew, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to just kind of ramble on your show.
Please, the honor's all mine. Thanks for coming back on. Like I told you earlier before the podcast, people were asking for it, so I'm glad that you were able to hop back on here.
Let's do a recap in October. Let's do a recap. Because I'm sure we could do, because I'm going to go on a scouting trip, I think at the end of July. We could do one of those too. But definitely, if nothing else, we'll do a recap show after I get back.
Yeah. For sure. Absolutely, man.
Cool, man.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Hey, pleasure's all mine. We'll do it again soon.